Hello and welcome to day 3 of my banqueting build log for Stronghold Kingdoms. Now, a mere technicality that I should point out first is that this is actually run on a bit, so we're more at day 3.5 right here. So you may remember in yesterday's video I was just about to convert my village to a highland, and I have successfully done so and proceeded to build it up. If we take a look at the village's overview, I currently have 48 buildings in my village. After my free 2-day premium token ran out, I proceeded to put a 7-day token in play. This isn't mandatory. You can do what I did essentially without a premium token. I just find it easier in the beginning of the game to actually use a premium token to queue up researches and buildings in your village. That way when you're not around, which I largely am not, your game continues to progress at a rather reasonable pace. The production cards that I use have a 12-hour timer on them, which means that if I play 2 every day, I will have my production fully covered. And this means essentially that I have to use 2 cards for each production that I want to increase every day. I think this is a pretty fair way to go about it, and as you can see right now I have a whole bunch of cards in play currently that are boosting production. So in the past day, the production cards I used, and I have only been using production cards, no instant cards. I wanted to keep this build log as condensed as possible. I am interested in people being able to replicate the steps I took here without too much difficulty, and if I start introducing cards that you actually have to wait for random drops to get, it can be a barrier that's difficult to overcome without throwing money at the game. So in the past day I spent 168 card points on cards, and the cards that I bought were production based. So I used 2 Woodsmanship cards. As you can see, I currently have 1 in play. It increases wood production by ×3. I also used 2 stone production cards. I haven't been using the advanced versions of these, but when it comes to food, I actually have been using both advanced orchards and advanced milkmaids on a regular basis, so I used 2 of those in the past 24 hours. When it comes to banqueting goods, I used 1 advanced deer stalking, 1 advanced furniture making, 1 advanced metal crafts, and then just 1 plain metal crafts, 1 plain furniture making, and 1 plain deer stalking. And now this most recent time that I have put cards into play, the advanced tailoring is included among that list because I have actually gained access to my 4th banqueting good type. Now, as you're probably aware if you saw either of the other 2 videos that came before this, the strategy that I'm going for involves 4 banqueting good types being mass-produced in Highland villages. To recap briefly, I'm going to be going all Highland villages, and then I'm going to be maxing the research out fully for just those 4 banqueting good types. I might as well just go ahead and let you know what I've been working on in the past 36 hours. Starting off with industry, I put 3 points into metal bashing. Carpentry, I have invested 3 points for a total of level 5. Hunting, I have invested 4 points in. Banqueting, I had to increase that up to level 4. I put 1 point into it to unlock access to the tailoring branch, and then I proceeded to invest 6 points into tailoring for a level of 6. When it comes to military, I put 1 point into fortification because I do need to get a start on my castle. In the education tree, now I'm focusing more on hall capacity, and I currently put 2 points into it for a total of level 2. Currently working on the 3rd point, and it'll be done in 16 minutes. Now, the reason for investing in hall capacity is if I'm going to be playing production cards for my banqueting goods, and I'm going to be producing about 2,400 a day currently, just for venison, I need to sleep sometime, and I'm not going to get up in the middle of the night and hold a banquet. So either I'm going to have to increase my village hall capacity rather significantly, or I'm going to lose goods, which is something that I don't want to do because it defeats the entire purpose of playing those premium cards to begin with. So I think this is an important time to talk about what you could do alternatively to what I did, and some observations that I have when it comes to me plotting out my research allocation in this build, because I have never made a secret of it that I will make mistakes from time to time, and I try to be as transparent about those as possible, because if I make a mistake, I don't want you repeating it simply because I made it. So when it comes to arts, now initially I thought that I would be investing in arts because I would keep my rations at ×4 at all times, in my village, my food rations. And not only would I be gaining honor from banqueting, but I would also be gaining passive honor. Now, this hasn't really panned out so well because I also needed gold, and one of the best ways for me to make gold at this stage in the game is actually to sell food. So I have been focusing more on food production for selling purposes than I actually have for generating honor. And this means that, well, right now I have food rations set at ×3, but this is because I currently need more peasants to come to my village. And if I knocked it down too much, you could see there, I really just don't have a whole lot of positive popularity then, do I? Only 13. So I'm not making a whole lot off of this investment that I made into arts research. So when you are doing this build, you could nix this. Just put that very first point in that you need for the tutorial, and probably focus these other 4 points either into banqueting good productivity or something in military. I mean, you could get some scouts. It depends upon how active you are. I've never cared much for scouts because they give you only as much as you're willing to put in, and what you have to put in is a lot of time. And if the world that you're playing in is too active, there are other players that are likely going to beat you to a lot of resource stashes. That is not the case in this world, but you know, you have to evaluate your situation before deciding on which strategy you're going to employ. I mean, if I went down the scout route in this world, there is reasonable access to goods currently. I could play a card and I'd pick up a reasonable amount of goods, but that's not what this build is focused on. And I see a lot of players trying to mix strategies. Everybody wants scouts. Nobody wants to do it this way. Well, that's fine. This is the way I'm doing it. And I have no problem with you adopting your own strategies into it. But don't, how would I put this? Don't come to me asking advice for a build that I didn't design. You know, if you are doing your own build, you are going to decide how you're going to do it. I am no longer in really control of that. I can't supervise what you're doing anymore because you are subverting what the plan I followed so much that it's untested for me. I don't know how things are going to go. There are some general principles to be applied, but I just don't feel that I'm qualified to really advise in that role because I haven't gone down that road myself personally. So those are my thoughts on arts in the industry tab when it comes to tools. Now, I personally think that investing in tools is a great decision, especially in this case, because you're going to be building banqueting buildings, and that requires a lot of gold. You can reduce the cost of a building by 40% simply by maxing out tools. And you're going to be building a lot of buildings that are going to cost a lot of gold. I think that is a worthwhile trade, to be honest. But, you know, your mileage may vary depending upon your personal style. You know, you're going to develop a personal style. I would hope you would, because there is no one way to do it. A lot of players want a very rigid plan. They want you to tell them exactly what to do, and I'm not doing that. I don't want you to take any of the advice I give I don't want you to take it as gospel, you know? This is how I did it. You know, it's half playthrough, half guide, I guess. That's what you come down to in the end. I'm trying to make it as a helpful resource, but at the same time, it's simply documenting my experience playing it. This is just how I recommend doing it. And you can either follow along, or you can borrow some ideas and add some of your own. Or you can ignore my ideas altogether, you know? Let's take a look at rank. I'm currently a Thane 2nd grade, a couple more ranks, and I'll be getting another village. In regards to quests completed, I completed Master Mason, Spread the Word 2, Team Player 1, Deer Hunter 1, Gold Horde 2, and Construction Crazy 2. As you can see, since I don't have any scouts or army, I'm not completing any of those missions or those quests currently at all. Yeah, so I think we already established that I took this parish. There are currently only a couple of other players in it, so it's largely uncontested. And I'm building productivity guilds first. The only reason I placed this barracks here is because I have some excess gold. But I will be building all my productivity buildings first because I'm tailoring this parish to the resources that I need. Now, some might think that it's unreasonable and you should do it more diplomatically or democratically, depending upon what the other parishioners in your parish think. I disagree with this because since you as the steward are going to be doing the bulk of the donating anyway, you should tailor the parish to your personal preferences and what you need before considering any of the other parishioners' needs. That is, unless you sort of work a deal out with them in advance where they'll support you if you're looking out for their interests as well. But if that's not the case, don't go out of your way. Look after your interests in that parish first. And I think this is as good a time as any to discuss my choice of house. Now, I was sent this invitation to House 9, and I'm unsure of how I was selected. Now, as it turns out, House 9 is actually run by a player that I have had dealings with in the past, so it's likely that I was recognized as a fairly competent player and selected due to that. But this really shouldn't be a problem for you as a new player either. If you demonstrate that you are able to, pull off decent village growth within the first few days and really assert control over the parish, and that's something you want to do. You don't want other players to control the parish because likely they're going to be less experienced than you. This is not always the case. Sometimes you'll run into players who are really quite good. I mean, if I spawned in the parish right up here at the very beginning of the game, this was the parish that just a random spawned in. Obviously, I'm not going to challenge him. It would be foolish because he is a much higher level player than I am. But a lot of the parishes you'll spawn in contain players who are less competent than you at building a parish. So you want to make sure you take over that parish right away and spend those flags on guilds before any of the early houses simply raid that neutral parish, because that's what all these neutral parishes are here. If those parish stewards aren't spending those flags, they're all being raided by these housed players. So when you gain control of your parish, the first thing you want to do is spend those flags, and then you want to look into joining a house. It doesn't matter which house you join, it needs to be one in the local area, because that's going to protect you during the early parts of the game. You may actually develop a decent bond with them and continue to play with them. I would usually recommend that unless you really can't stand them. But when you're in an area, it usually goes best if you join the house that's in that area. So what to do if you're not selected for demonstrating excellent village growth and parish building prowess? Well, you're going to have to take some initiative and actually go out there and contact those houses themselves. I would mail all the officers because the house general usually has enough on their plate, especially in the early games like this. They're very busy ranking up, creating new alliances right off the bat. They probably have dozens, if not hundreds, of mails being sent to them by players who are just interested in knowing what's what with them. So mail the officers, maybe ask for a recruitment officer, or maybe you'll get an officer that's willing to talk to you without being a recruitment officer. A lot of factions have dedicated officers in those factions that handle all things recruitment-wise. And if this fails, you could try contacting a housed steward in a neighboring parish. If, for example, we take a look at this parish here, Mr. Stinky Slinks is currently the steward. I could reach out to them because they're a much lower level player, likely. I could be wrong about this. No, they would be a much lower level player. They're not in the administration, so the odds are that they'll actually see your message and get back to you. And hopefully, they can help pull some strings within that faction to get you noticed and get you in the house, because getting in the house in the early part of the game is important for your parish. And then once your peacetime runs out for your village, it's important for your village, because most wars do not break out within the first 10 days or so of the game. There are some exceptions to that, but this will give you at least an additional 5 days of protection from being attacked and allow you to start building up your castle. As you can see right here, I don't have much of a castle built. Anybody could raise this, so I'm relying on house protection to actually prevent other players in this game from attacking me right now. So I think that pretty much covers everything. If we look at the village again, since I have a premium token in play, I'm moving these buildings around as I see fit. So if you're not playing with a premium token, you're going to want to be a little bit more careful in where you place your buildings, because they're going to be there until you manage to scrounge up another premium token to move them around again. But that pretty much sums everything up that I had to say for day 3.5. I went over by a little bit, so, you know, consider the extra time that I spent doing this as a compensation for missing out on half a day of documentation. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.
Stronghold Kingdoms. The battle has just begun.